Welcome to the Psychology World podcast. I'm Connor Whiteley, bringing you psychology news, articles, and other interesting psychology-related articles. Where I can find the podcast notes and more interesting psychology-related things, and you can get your free 8 psychology book box set at connorwhiteley.net. Now let's get on to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 107 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, and today's episode is on 3 awkward things that clinical psychologists should know about. And this episode I think is really interesting because, as we know, in therapy and in clinical psychology, there are some topics that our clients want to tell us and mental health sufferers sort of need to tell us for the therapy to be successful and to help them. But when it actually comes down to it, these are very awkward, very difficult conversations to have. So in this podcast episode, I'm going to be talking about how you might be able to help these people come forward and actually want to talk about these difficult topics. And also, though, we need to understand where our clients are coming from, because sometimes, and this always happens in everyday life, there is a massive disconnect between different people, though. For example, our clients don't know what clinical psychologists are looking for, and sometimes as clinical psychologists, we forget what our clients need and want. This is a great episode, and I really am looking forward to it. And it's Thursday, the 19th of August 2021, as I record this. So I'm recording it a bit early this week, because I've got the house to myself next week. So I want to get the podcast done and scheduled and uploaded, just so I can dive into some projects. So moving on to the psychology news section, we're reading from the British Psychological Society Research Digest. And there's some very, very good articles here today, and some very true ones if you're interested in psychology research. We all use our phones differently, so general measures of screen time are not very useful. The impact of technology on young people, often debated topic in the media, is increased screen time having a severe impact on their mental health, or have we over-exaggerated the level of risk young people face due to their use of tech? According to a new study published in Humanities and Social Sciences Communications, we could be asking the wrong questions. The team suggests that rather than looking at screen time in a binary way, researchers explored the nuances of a smartphone use, how young people are using their phones, rather than the fact that we're using them at all. And if you remember episode 95 of the Psychology World podcast, I did a very interesting episode on screen time, and that the way how we look at screen time and even think about it from a parenting perspective, it could actually be completely wrong. But if we focus on this news article, I do agree, because I'm an author and because I do a lot, podcasting and everything, though, I tend to use my phone mainly for business things and keeping on the top of stuff that's happening in the psychology community, in the author community. I listen to podcasts on it, and I do lots of different bits and pieces. And of course, occasionally I do text and phone people. I really don't phone people that often. I don't like phoning people unless I really have to. But going back to what I was saying, that yes, I use my phone and listen to podcasts and to keep in touch with different things. But you might use your phone completely differently. So I do understand where this paper is coming from, because it's completely unfair for me to be compared to you, because both of us probably use our phones very, very differently. So it does make sense, and it's something to think about. Okay, so the next one is excessive mirroring could explain why people with misophonia react strongly to sounds of chewing or drinking. No one likes the sound of someone else chewing or drinking, but for some people, it's enough to cause overwhelming feelings of anger or disgust, and in some cases, send them into a violent rage. People with misophonia, literally a hatred of sounds, overreact to something common every day, trigger sounds, typically made by another person. Though the phenomenon has been well documented, exactly what causes it hasn't been clear. Now, a new paper provides a compelling explanation that misophonia isn't related to hearing so much as to an over-mirroring of someone else's physical actions. The team thinks this excessive mirroring causes anger in some sufferers and anxiety and distress in others. So this I actually had no idea there was such thing as like misophonia. So it definitely sounds interesting, and the important thing about mirroring in those are like mirror neurons, which I talk about in cognitive psychology book or my biological psychology book. I'm pretty sure that it's in my cognitive psychology book. So I really do recommend checking it out there because it's really interesting about how these neurons how to mirror different people's emotions. So very interesting. And misophonia, well, you learn something new every day, because I really had no idea about it. And the last one that definitely connects to last week's topic, at least I think it was like last week's. When bosses are respectful, younger people are more resilient at work and enjoy their job more. From ball pits to free beers, fun job perks have received plenty of press attention over the last few years. For millennials, such benefits should surely be appealing. They are, after all, the generations those perks were obscenely designed for. But according to a new study, younger people themselves have a different priority in the workplace: respect. The team finds that being valued and respected by managers was the key factor in employees' ability to positively adapt to the workplace, and in turn, this impacted how loyal workers were to their employers, how much they engaged in their work, and how happy they felt overall. And this I definitely see the point in, because let's face it, if you have some amazing job perks, then yes, I'd be like, you're going to be happy, you'll definitely use them. I know that I would. So job perks are beneficial, but at the end of the day, we all want to be respected, we all want to be valued, and we all want to be appreciated. So this study, I don't think is anything that new or that exciting, but at least the research is yes, I believe at least the researchers are confirming the common sense explanation, which it doesn't always do, which is why research is always really important. So I hope you enjoy the psychology news section. So let's move on to the personal update. So we're moving on to the personal update. So I finally finished the forensic psychology research. So I'm really happy to get that all done. And I really am looking forward to writing that book at some point. So besides from the research, there's not a lot of other psychology bits and pieces that I've been for most of this week. I've mainly been focusing on fiction projects and a bunch of other projects that aren't psychology. So there's not a lot of other stuff to talk about in this personal update. So as always, I always love to hear from you. So that you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net. You can always leave a comment at the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast, and you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi@whiteley. I always love to hear from all of you. And today's episode has been sponsored by As a Normal Psychology, The Causes and Treatments of Depression, Anxiety and More, 3rd edition. So this is a great book that I really do love writing. I absolutely love telling the people about it, because it's a great book that goes into the biological, cognitive and social causes, anxiety and lots of other types of mental health conditions, for example schizophrenia, but it also goes into the different types of anxiety. For example, I had no idea there were so many different types, for example phobias, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, but then it also goes into all the many different types of treatments. So for example, the different social treatments, the biological, cognitive, but also the new emerging ones, which they're really, really interesting. So I really do recommend this great book, especially if you're interested in mental health and clinical psychology. So that is Abnormal Psychology, The Causes and Treatments of Depression, Anxiety and More, 3rd edition. Available from all major ebook retailers, and you can order the paperback, print book and large print from Amazon, your local bookstore and local library if you request it. And if you want, you can also order the ebook directly from me at payhip.com/connorwhiteley. But today I've also decided to set up a way if you were to support the podcast. If you absolutely love one episode, but you don't necessarily want to buy a book, but then I've set up a way if you to support the podcast directly through a one-off contribution. So I've now set up a buy me a coffee link. As you can go there. And you can give me a one-off contribution there, a contribution there. So if you want to do that, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/connorwhiteley. And if you buy a book, or if you do buy me a coffee, well then I'll really appreciate it. And this money will help us support the podcast, because it does take a lot of time and effort to produce it. So that's enough for personal update. Let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So we're going to be talking about 3 awkward things clinical psychologists should know about. So these are 3 awkward things that clients should tell us, but they might not want to. So for the rest of this podcast episode, I'm going to be telling you about these 3 things, and some of them are really true, and I really do feel for our clients. But the entire point of this is that just you can hear what these things are, and then I'll give you some ideas about how to get our clients to talk to it. But before I go on to talk about these 3 topics, I should know that is always a good idea to encourage a client to talk about weird and uncomfortable topics, as this can help you both to deepen the therapeutic relationship, which enhances and helps the therapy in other ways too. Difficulties or information that they haven't revealed. So firstly, we have to think about this in terms of our clients, because we might have information that they're depressed with a troublesome school life, but they may suffer from anxiety too. And that's the bit that they've not told us. So the fact that they've come to therapy in the first place is extremely stressful, but it's also courageous, because the stupid stigma around therapy, and of course the general and very rubbish idea, is that if you go to therapy, then you're messed up and there's something wrong with you. Of course, that is absolute rubbish, but sadly it still exists. But then on top of that, they have another difficulty, and they have to tell a stranger about it. That's even more terrifying. And this is made even worse if the client has been abused or suffered some sort of a trauma that they've never told anyone, but it's a critical factor in the mental health difficulties. This makes it absolutely critical that we help our clients to trust us and stress the importance of them telling us things. And of course, this is not going to happen in the first session. I'd be very surprised if they tell us these deep personal things in the first 2 or maybe 3 sessions, because, of course, trust does take a while to develop. But they really have got to tell us that these are things, and we also need to earn their trust, because if they don't tell us, then we won't be able to help them deal with the difficulties beyond the surface level stuff that we already know about, from the assessment and the other reports that we get. Of course, though, we need to remember confidentiality, because if they tell us something, that means we'll have to break confidentiality. For example, if there's an imminent danger to a person, then we will have to break it. But we need our clients to trust us and tell us things. Otherwise, the therapeutic process will be so much harder. This is why it's so important to stress the limits and the extent that confidentiality runs to in the first place. We said something upsetting. This will definitely happen to everyone at some point. I know from personal experience when I've said something as a joke and people have gotten horrifically offended in my personal life. This is just going to happen. It doesn't make you a bad person, but we need to learn from these things, because sometimes people won't see it as the innocent comment it is, or maybe the helpful comment. And also, this is where clinical psychology can actually be really helpful. So, as I was saying, in terms of therapy, a clinical psychologist can make offhand comments or say things that upset our clients. It might be something that minimises what they went through, how far they've come, or they've just annoyed by it. Normally and ideally, the client would tell you in at the moment, so a clinical psychologist would know not to say it again. But sometimes clients won't, and it will continue to annoy them. And we've all been there. We've all been there when someone said something, or they've made it sound dig at us, and we've not called them out on it, but I'm thinking that we're just let it go, but it ends up really annoying us. And our clients are no different. Our clients are just like us, so we need to treat them like us. And going back to the blog article, the reason why it's important to tell the client to inform you when you've crossed the line or said something upsetting is for a few reasons. For example, it can help you as a therapist to know what not to say in the future, as well as it gives them a deeper insight into the client's emotional makeup, and that can be really helpful. And it helps create a deeper, more empathetic relationship between the clinical psychologist and the client, because honesty and open discussions can be considered what a great therapy is made from, because it's so critical. But the most important thing is it can advance the therapy, because if the client gets offended by something in a particular, it could reveal something that they haven't told you, or sometimes that they don't even know about it, and it could reveal another difficulty they have. For instance, if you say something about your mother, so not their mother, your mother, and the client got annoyed by it, but they keep insisting that they're perfectly happy with their mother, then the question is, why were they offended by it? So it's just something like that. And then the last one is, clinical psychologists aren't understanding it. As I've always said, something that I love about psychology and learning is that there's always more to learn, and that is great. That is great. You really don't know how happy and how much I love that simple fact, because there's so much to learn about human behaviour and other cultures. But in all fairness, there are definitely downsides to this, because everyone works in a different industry, a different job, and has like a different names for different things and so on. And this all creates a problem in therapy, because someone might be trying to explain a habit or difficulty of theirs, and because we use different vocabulary and different words that mean different things, we might not understand it. This is normal and this is perfectly okay, but in therapy, this is not the most helpful. So let's use a fictional example of me as an author working in the publishing industry. So yes, I'm going very, very niche, and in all fairness, I know this is a terrible example, but you should be able to get the idea. And the fictional example was that I was letting you know about my anxiety about Audible and how it wasn't paying authors properly because of #AudibleGate. And so just from that simple statement, so some of you will probably be able to guess the general idea, but lots of you won't. I didn't know what it was at the first point, and then I had to learn about it and everything there were. But if I was a client, then without going in to the ins and outs of it, I wouldn't be able to explain it properly. And you might say that you understand it, but you actually don't. And if I was in a therapy, and that lack of understanding wouldn't be helpful. So anyway, the reason why this is important is because this can make our clients feel like they're not being valued or understood, which is why it's important to remind our clients to tell us these things. So we know that we aren't correct, and we can focus on making sure we understand what they're talking about, because that's really important. Conclusion. Overall, let's face it, there are so many topics that our clients might want to talk to us about, but they feel awkward and bad for telling us, because no one wants to call out a clinical psychologist who's a doctor, who's a professional. No one wants to do that. And sometimes, and also though, we don't want our clinical psychologist to make us feel bad. So that's what we need to think about as a clinical psychologist. We need to put ourselves in the shoes of our clients. But this is okay for our clients, because for the sake of the therapy and the therapeutic success, we need to encourage our clients to talk to us and tell us things so that we can help them to the best of our abilities, because that's what our clients deserve. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and I really hope that you got something out of it. If you want to learn more, then please check out any of my clinical psychology books, including Abnormal Psychology, The Causes and the Treatments of Depression, Anxiety and More, a third edition, available in all the usual places. I really do recommend it. And if you want to support me directly, then please check out buymeacoffee.com/Connor Whiteley. I really do appreciate it. And if you know someone who would find today's episode useful, then please share it with them. Always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.